Вітаю, колеги.
Colleagues, it is July 1st, 128th day of Ukraine's resistance against the Russian aggressor. My name is Natalia Staropravo, and we're starting a series of briefing at Media Center Ukraine. With us is Andriy Demchenko, spokesperson of the State Border Service of Ukraine. Hello, Andriy. What is the situation at the state border of Ukraine? Well, I should first of all say about the border with Russia in the Chernihiv and Sumy region. The enemy are continuing to fire at the border area from Russia. Over the course of yesterday, there were over 15 attacks using both artillery and firearms, grenade launchers, which is a threat not only to the military but also to the civilians who live in the border area. And there have been multiple hits of civilian residential property and other infrastructure in the border area. At the same time, fortunately, there hasn't been a group that might uh, penetrate the territory of our country again. We're not seeing uh, this. We are also not seeing other strike groups that have had already been formed in Belarus. This means that neither the armed forces of Ukraine nor the border guard services never excluded the possibility that there might be an attack from the territory of Belarus, an invasion into our country, because Belarus is supporting the actions of the Russian Federation in the war against our state. There is firing and attacks happening from the side of Belarus, from the territory of Belarus. With more powerful weapon that hits our territory from a greater distance. Additionally, we see the work of drones at the Belarusian border, trying to trace the situation in the border area of Ukraine, and the work of radio electronic systems that help the armed forces of Belarus, I think in coordination with Russia, to track the situation in Ukrainian territory. Could you tell us more about what's happening at the border of Belarus? Is any word on mobilization or other movements? Our intelligence detachments and the armed forces of Ukraine and our forces are watching everything that is happening deep into the Belarusian border area. We understand that they keep announcing trainings or steps to prepare for mobilization. However, we see no threat at the moment. We see no threat at the moment. We hope that this persists and that Belarus will understand um, that supporting the invasion of Ukraine is purely backing a losing side, is purely disastrous for their country if this decision is made. Starting from today, we have a visa regime to cross the border for Russians. What do you know about this? What can you tell us about this? Yes, starting from today, Russians need a visa. It's entered into force, the decision by the government to stop non-visa trips for Russian citizens into Ukraine, including transit. Are you with us, Andriy? Yes, including transit, and the border guards are now testing visas. Should citizens of the Russian Federation enter our country or try to enter our country? So far, we've had no such instances. I've heard of no such instances of citizens of the Russian Federation coming in with visas. But even if they have a visa, an attempt to cross the border does not guarantee them entry into Ukraine because they have to correspond other conditions set forth in the Ukrainian legislation to cross the border: a proper passport, no restrictions on entry, because someone might have been given a visa, but then over time also been prohibited from entering Ukraine. Again, they also have to confirm the goal, the objective of their entrance into Ukraine, and have proper financial uh, means. If any of these demands are not met, requirements are not met, they may be refused entry. If the border guards realize that that the visa has been perhaps forged or has otherwise been obtained uh, illegally, this visa is immediately annulled. Such a person will not be admitted and may also be banned from entering the country in future. Again, the border guards were prepared for this decision by the government. This isn't particularly difficult for us because we kept testing visas for other categories that needed visa to enter Ukraine. We have access to the necessary um, databases from diplomatic institutions and also e-visa. So we will continue doing this work, and citizens of the Russian Federation will be screened, will be watched closely. However, I would like to say that this step by Ukraine, the visa regime with Russia, is of course, strengthens the security of our state because ahead of time we can see and we can understand who of the citizens of the Russian Federation are planning to enter our country and whether or not they are a threat to us. We have a question from the room, please. Yes. Some technical question, perhaps the other question. Yes. Andriy Shevchenko Media Center, Ukraine. Could you tell us about what sort of changes? Could you tell us about the changes in the rules for crossing EU borders? And two clarifying questions. Um, what does it mean today for the work of the border guard? What is this kind of transport visa-free crossing for EU countries? And what can you tell us about uh, the movement of groups of children in this summer season through EU borders? Okay, in recent days, there haven't been particular changes in the regulations of crossing the border on any kind of in terms of like government regulations. However, I'd like to state that the overall traffic of passengers in the border of Moldova and the EU countries is about 90,000 people in either direction. Most of those across the border are citizens of Ukraine, and for some time now we've seen that more Ukrainian citizens are coming into Ukraine than leaving Ukraine. So we can conclude that citizens of Ukraine continue to return from abroad, especially those who had to leave, who had been forced to leave Ukraine because of Russia's war. However, in more recent times, we've seen a few instances when organized groups of children who were going for vacations did not have proper documentation, didn't have the proper package of documents. I would like to state that these changes were adopted on June 10th. They had been announced, and I would like to talk to the organizers, to address the organizers and institutions that have the right to provide organized recreation for the children abroad to pay attention to this and create proper documentation. At the time, this this rest can only happen. This vacation can only happen with permission by the National Social Service of Ukraine. Previously, there could be other institutions of socially minded institutions, but right now only the National Social Service. This agreement, this consent has to be granted to the organizers. The document has to be signed along with this authority, as well as possibly military authorities, which is perhaps even slightly simpler because they don't need notary they don't need to be signed by a notary. The rules, the regulations for crossing the border for children is clearly stated in the law. It is not that difficult to ensure. At the border, the border guards will see will check the presence of this agreement or this consent, also the list of children and accompanying adults, and the consent by parents for their children to cross the border. This is also, I would like to state that for the period of martial law, again, it doesn't have, you don't need a notary signature from both parents. It can be a statement uh, signed by the, agreed with the social service by one of the parents. We have another question, please. I wanted to ask about the Zmiyiny Island, Snake Island. Recently, due to a strong attack by the Ukrainian defense forces, a group of Russian forces was destroyed there, and as far as we know, the enemy has left the island. The island was always very important for the Ukrainian border guards and was always symbolic because it was one of the first one to take the attack on February 24th. What is the future of this island according to the Ukrainian border guards? Well, this is exceedingly pleasing news both for Ukraine in general and for the border guards because, like you said, the island is this kind of symbol at the moment, also in our struggle against the enemy. Because one of the first symbols is the was the serviceman who gave a clear answer to a Russian warship trying to attacking this island. Of course, the situation in here along around the island continues to be tense because the enemy might have mined the approaches to the island. Uh, there is now the situation is now being watched around the island, but I hope that the border guards will, as soon as possible, they'll be able to return to this bit of Ukrainian land to continue defending our state. And we saw that the reason the enemy took the Izmyiny island because they flooded this territory with necessary attack means and used it to send strikes on other parts of Ukrainian territory. So when the enemy retreated from Zmiyiny Island, I really hope that. Yes, please continue. You dropped. I hope that um, there won't there will be a lot fewer shellings and attacks on Ukrainian territory. We also know that Russians have deported many Ukrainians illegally to the territory of the Russian Federation or temporarily occupied territories. What are the plans in place to return such citizens of Ukraine? Well, j- just like there have been people who were forcefully deported, there were also citizens who had to leave the territory of Ukraine due to combat or fighting, and they went either through Russia or through temporarily occupied territories. Again, in the direction of Russia. We have also seen some instances, especially in the earliest weeks of the war, where people also left for Belarus, went to Belarus. However, I would like to state that in any case, if citizens of Ukraine are coming home, and whether with or without proper documents, we will let them through to the territory of Ukraine. Of course, without documents, for our citizens, it will be more difficult not only to return home but also to move through the territory of Russia or the territory of Belarus. They may run into difficulties to cross the checkpoints in these countries as well. However, if they reach the territory of Ukraine, even without documents, we will do our best to ensure everything they need and ensure that they are let through into the territory of Ukraine. However, if you have a person without documentation, we will have to take steps to establish their person. This work will be done together with the employees of the National Police, the Migration Services, the Security Service of Ukraine. At a point where their identity is established, the citizens of Ukraine will immediately be admitted into Ukraine. Thank you. With us was Andriy Demchenko, spokesperson of the State Border Service of Ukraine. We will see you at 2 o'clock talking about volunteering and humanitarian initiatives in Lviv. Stay with us.